Fairgo founder Brian Edwards says the reporters on the show were power-drunk bullies.
So what people discovered they now had was a goodies and baddies program, a cops and robbers program, a cowboys and Indians program, where the baddies got their comeuppance. And that's always been the appeal of Fairgo. The baddies getting their comeuppance. Not always big stories, small
Good evening and welcome to the final Fairgo for 1977. Over the past year we've unearthed some major rip-offs and some minor rip-offs, and we've come to our own conclusions about who are the really dishonest groups in our society. But we were more interested to find out who you, the public, felt were the greatest rip-off merchants in New Zealand. We put that question to a number of unsuspecting passers-by in the street.
But I can tell you that the most dishonest people, I think, are council workers.
My own personal opinion is that accountants and lawyers.
Really asked in quite a polite way the sort of supplementary questions that I thought needed to be asked of politicians. And that was the start of becoming famous in New Zealand, if you like. Playing devil's advocate to both sides, which is what you normally do in this sort of thing, and finally convincing them that really they were essentially saying the same things. At one point I remember asking the audience, had anyone in the audience ever committed sodomy? And the only person who put up their hand was a person who was a guest on the show, and that was Sam Hunt. And he confessed having committed sodomy. He was probably more honest than a lot of people. If the reviews were bad, I would actually be ill, So the stress of doing that became much too much for me, I think. And in the end, I was quite happy to see it go. The day-to-day stuff of politics, what the government's programs are, how it's performing, what the opposition is doing, how it's performing, holding politicians to account. There's very little of that, really.
Edwards, Fairgo reporters power-drunk bullies. Brian Edwards has taken another swipe at Fairgo, the television program he helped create more than 35 years ago. In a blog post he said he was frustrated at the imbalance of power between the Television One consumer affairs program and its victims. Edwards now runs a media training company and has helped some of those mentioned on Fairgo with responding to allegations. Being in the right is no protection against a program which, as I have argued before, acts as a court but has none of the protections that would apply to an accused. Edwards' comments coincided with the start of a new season of Fairgo last night. He said the program could deal adequately with relatively simple complaints about dishonest dealers and shoky tradesmen. But the time and entertainment constraints under which it operates, your response to a complaint against you will be lucky to be given more than 2 or 3 minutes airtime, make it impossible for the show to deal adequately or fairly with complex issues, Edwards said. Fairgo had been out of control for some years, Edwards said. Its reporters, with the notable exceptions of Hannah Wallace and Kevin Milne, about whom we have never received a single complaint, are power-drunk bullies. Its journalism is suspect, its honesty open to question. In a major respect the program was different from the one he devised, hosted and for a time produced in the late 1970s and early 1980s. Throughout that period the program was broadcast live, Edwards said. Where possible the company was cross-examined live in the studio. As a viewer you got to see every question that was asked and every answer that was given. Edwards said anyone contacted by a Fairgo reporter should have nothing to do with them. The return of Fairgo meant more work for his company, but he would rather not have it. TV NZ spokeswoman Megan Richards said Edwards was perfectly entitled to his opinion. She did not want to comment about his claims in detail, but said the one complaint made about Fairgo to the Broadcasting Standards Authority in 2013 was not upheld. Fairgo founder Brian Edwards says the reporters on the show were power-drunk bullies.